right, so this is take 2 because I had to delete the first one.
All right, go on.
Because you tried to take over my podcast.
I didn't try to take. It's not your podcast. It's our podcast.
No, it's obviously man's podcast.
Oh my gosh.
So you had an interview with Channel 4.
Yes, I did.
How did that come about?
They found Afamina Events on Instagram, and they're putting together a show, which they piloted I think it was at Christmas times. They're doing a second part, and they're thinking about who to feature on the show. It's all to do with florists and that sort of thing, and hopefully they may choose me. We don't know.
Why are you talking posh?
I'm not speaking. How am I talking posh?
You're like, hopefully they don't hear.
That's how I speak.
That's not how you speak. Now, how you're speaking now is how you speak. But before you're like, I'm on a podcast, ladies and gentlemen. No, I'm trying to find.
That's not true.
Yeah, well,
that's how I speak.
Well, I think that it's incredible that they looked at your work and thought that it was worth contacting you over, even though if it does go through, you don't get paid a penny.
No, but it would be good
exposure.
HR though. Is it called? No, PR. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, today we are talking about how to encourage your children to open up to you. We were at Pastor Abdul Yusuf's house with his wife Michelle, and we were having a conversation over the table, and the subject of raising children and how to get your children to be open and honest with you came up, and it really got me thinking. So as people were talking, I was kind of making mental notes as to how can we encourage our children. Okay, so Benjamin is 9?
Yes.
He's going to be 10, and 3 years time he'll be a teenager. He's going to be making friends. He's going to be going out there, and life happens to all of us. There's going to be times where he will feel like, I don't think I want mom and dad to know this. And so I've been thinking, what is it that we can do from now to encourage all our children to be open about everything, so that Renee comes and talks about everything. Balfour, Benjamin, they all come in, we sit at the dinner table, and whatever they've gone through, they're not ashamed. They don't hide anything. There's no secrets. And I think, we'll probably talk about this on the next podcast, the household constitution. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and so I'll give you more details about that, guys, next time. But this is... one of the constitutions is we should have no secrets, and but there are things I believe that parents can do, either knowingly or unknowingly, that will actually contribute towards their children not opening up to them. Okay, so I've got a number of things I've written down, and so I wanted to go through them one by one with you, and then we can kind of like share some thoughts. So the first one is, if you want your children to open up with and speak to you, you can't be too strict. There's nothing wrong with being strict, but being too strict, I believe, sometimes can be harmful to when you're overly strict over things that you don't need to be strict about. Now, I found myself doing this a number of times as a parent, where I'm just saying no, and I don't have a real reason why. I don't know if you've ever, it's almost like there's this principle that, parents should say no. Can I have this? No. Why? Don't ask me questions. Right? We're just being strict for the sake of being strict because we've constructed in our own minds that, my child is being too fast or too inner, or why they're asking, I'm a grown up. And there's so many other different things. And so I believe that then what can tend to happen is, if you say no too many times and you're too strict, that children will then start going behind your back to get what they want.
Yeah.
Right, because they've tried the diplomatic approach. They've tried asking. They've even asked why. They've tried to get some rationale behind your reasoning, and yet they shut down as children, and so what develops is this. Okay, I'm going to have to start doing things under the covers, secretly, because I don't want to hear the word no. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's also very age dependent. So I think as children are quite young, they need to hear no a lot. And then as they get older, you then start to, loosen up a bit. So I think it comes with age.
Yeah, but I still think that even with the younger ones, their no that they receive should still be reasonable, right? Not no for no's sake. Can I put these wire into the plug socket? No, that's reasonable. Can I have loads of sweets before I go to bed? No, that's reasonable. But little things like, can I have juice in the afternoon?
Yeah, but maybe it's a no because juice isn't healthy.
Yeah, but if you've got like healthy juice in the house, the point is sometimes I think we can be too strict, Is there such a word called bubble wrappy? Can we be too bubble wrappy with our children?
I think bubble wrapping is different though. That's when you're overly protective. But when do you know you're being too strict though? That could be someone's question.
Yeah, and I think every parent then needs to kind of forge that. Like, why do you have the restrictions that you do?
Oh, okay. So I think maybe what's the determining factor is your why.
Yeah.
For saying no, if it's a no, or yes for saying yes.
Yeah. I believe, and I agree with you, I think the older the children get, the more freedom they should get. But
if it's earned.
Yeah, but still, I think with age comes dignity. There comes a time where you can't treat a 5-year-old the same way you do a 10-year-old.
Yeah, but if the 10-year-old has, in their behaviour or their decisions, has demonstrated that they can't be trusted in certain areas, then they don't deserve certain freedoms.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Like, they're not going to talk to you.
How do you... No, but it's true, though.
Yeah, but, okay, so it just goes around full circle. Are they behaving like that way because there are too many restrictions in the first place? That's something that needs to be assessed. If they're behaving that way and you've already given them rope to exercise their freedom and they have taken liberties with that, then yes, I totally agree with you. I was teaching the children this whole analogy about ropes when we were in, was it Portugal? Mm-hmm. When I gave them a very brief story about how this father had 2 daughters, and he, at their 5th birthday, he gave them both a piece of rope. And he says, every year that you get older, I'm going to take the rope that you have and I'm going to give you a brand new one. One bigger, longer, nicer. And these children are excited about it. And a year goes by, and the first girl comes and she presents the rope that she got when she was 5 to her father, and it was well looked after. It was scuffed here and there, but generally speaking, it looked good. And so he was very impressed with that, and he gave her one twice the size because she proved that she could look after it. And the younger one, she came in and she gave her rope, and it was tattered, dirty, ripped up. It did not look like what it looked like a year ago. And so he literally just gave her one the exact same size. And so the analogy there was, the older you get, the more rope you should get. But it really does depend on how you have dealt with the responsibilities, the trust that you were given the year before. So in that respect, yes, I totally agree. So despite the age of the child, if they're not displaying trustworthy attributes, then yeah, it's harder to trust and let go of some things. But we're not talking about the trustworthy of the children here. What we're talking about is, how can a parent encourage their children to open up when they're older? One of those things I'm feel strongly about this is, we cannot be, as parents, be overly strict.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. The other one was the punishments that we give them, or the discipline that we give them. So I'm not talking about physical discipline here, but just like if they do something, they can't be impossible.
What, the discipline?
Yeah. Sometimes we can say things like, if you don't finish A, B, and C, I don't know, you can't do, I'll never let you listen to music for the next year.
Oh, okay, right.
Or,
as in things that you can't see through.
Yeah, like giving them punishments of things that they can't see through.
But what's that got to do with their openness?
Because it creates this weird thing now where you're going to have to now try and be true to your word. You said it.
Right.
So you're going to have to go through with it now because, we very much believe strongly of not saying something to children, then changing your mind afterwards. Okay. So, and so now it's like, okay, but that punishment was something that was said off the cuff and it's a little bit unreasonable. So if I do something wrong again, I don't want to have to go through something unreasonable. I know I did something wrong, but this punishment is over the top. So I'm going to keep quiet about it. I'm not going to say anything about it.
I think the way to avoid doing that as a parent is to not come up with the punishment or the discipline off the cuff. I think that's where we've both been caught out with that. So you need to oftentimes think about what the punishment will be. It doesn't have to be straight away. So if you give yourself time to think about it, then it's almost guaranteed then to be measured, thought through, realistic, and reasonable for the crime, so to speak.
Yeah, because children are criminals.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, but they are. But you have to mix things up. You have to be creative. Each child has a different personality that you kind of have to draw out the appropriate punishment, which may be effective on one child but not so effective on the other. But absolutely, what you're saying is true. If we, off the cuff, because we're upset or disappointed, just say some stuff, and then have too much pride to then retract it because now we've said it has to go through. If it's unreasonable, the thing there's a deeper element there as well. It just kind of gives the children a sense of imbalance. If someone spills the milk and they have to stand in a corner for 2 hours. You know what I mean? We grew up in those kind of environments where African and Afro-Caribbean parents especially, and I'm sure some you Eastern European guys, and but it's this whole thing of like mistakes are now punishable.
Yeah.
When you spill something or you drop something by accident. So all of that needs to be measured out, because if it's too excessive in terms of you asking them to do the impossible, or the punishment is disproportionate. What's the word?
Disproportionate.
To the crime, because they're criminals. Then, then I think that could cause our children to withdraw a little, especially as they get older. I think pride is one of the reasons, the killers of relationships. Really, if you have too much pride, we have to be able to say, you know what, I was wrong. I'm sorry to our children.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, well, the other thing I think we should do is we ought not to jump to conclusions.
I do that all the time.
Yeah. I think this is my strong point, and I've got other weak points and you've got strong points, but because it's very easy to assume the worst immediately.
Yeah.
Judge someone or our children based on the reason, basically we're telling our children why they did what they did without giving them the opportunity to explain themselves. Just plucking a scenario out the air here. You tell Benjamin, let me just use me. I tell Benjamin, you can go and ride on your bike, but be back in 5 minutes. So he says, okay. And he fully wants to come back in 5 minutes. He goes out, he plays on his bike, but the chain comes off. And he loses track of time. And then he comes back half an hour later. So I know that he wanted to play for a long time. So I immediately assume that when he says, I forgot about the time, that he's lying, that he's played the game well, that he's manipulated the situation so he can get more time. And I without, asking anything, put him straight into the corner. And I think those kind of assumptions can be detrimental down the line. Because if you build up a reputation of thinking the worst of your child in every situation, when they do want to share something with you, they're going to be hesitant, because what if they're not believed?
True.
Okay. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's true. I think it's definitely an area of weakness that I have, because you will take the time to start investigating and asking questions, and then, you know, trying to understand the rationale behind certain decisions or behaviours before you then decide how to respond. Whereas I'm just reactive.
No, we both are. You know, Renee sometimes takes shortcuts when it comes to showers, right?
Yeah.
So one time she went to shower and she came up, this is literally a few days ago, real quick. And she was dry as a bone. So I immediately thought, nah, this girl, there's no way she showered. So I'm sniffing her hand to try and see if I can smell the soap. And so, Renee, you didn't shower, did you? I did. And I looked her dead in the eye. You did not shower. I know you didn't. No, Dad, I did. So we just stared at each other for a while. And I'd already made up my mind that she hadn't. So I said, go downstairs and have your shower. And so she starts getting upset. And she said, but Dad, you know, she's protesting. I said, no, you go downstairs and have your shower right now. So she stomps downstairs, you know, she's upset. And I'm thinking, I've won this one. You try to pull the wool over my eyes, but you obviously haven't showered. Then I thought, do you know what I mean? She didn't, you know, usually she crumbles if she's hiding something, but she didn't. So I went ahead of her. That's when I went to you and said, did Renee have a shower? And you said...
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, because I assisted her, which is the reason why she was...
So quick.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful point in case of jumping into a presumption or an assumption because you distrust or you're thinking the worst of your child in that situation. She came back upstairs and I apologized to her. I said, I'm so sorry, babe. I should have believed you. You were telling the truth. That was my fault. But she's only 5. Now imagine if I never apologized and I always assumed the worst, and now she's 14, 15.
Yeah,
she's in some trouble at school or something's happened, and she's like, yeah, I'm not going to tell my dad. So I think in order to encourage openness, have more conversation than accusation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
With your children.
I agree. Definitely food for thought.
Okay, well, another one is we ought not to, as parents, make fun of our children.
Okay.
Now, banter is, I think it's I'm all for banter, but
so you're like the king of banter.
Okay, I hope you all heard that. Bafo does something silly. He gets spoken to or disciplined, timeout corner, whatever, luxury taken away. We're at the dinner table. And it's done, it's dealt with. But then we bring it up as a point of ridicule now because we want him to, you know, because it's in all parents. When your children get over their punishment quickly, we sometimes feel like they haven't got it, they haven't learned.
Very true.
So we want to drive the point home.
We want them to feel it.
Yes. And so he's at the dinner table and we say things like, let's say he spilt some milk. But because he was ramping and he was doing something he was asked not to do. And our response is, hey, Mr. Milkman, how you doing? And he furrows his brow like, he doesn't, don't call me that because, you know, he knows what you're trying to say. Because I was acting the fool and I spilt the milk and I shouldn't have done that. I've already been in trouble. But we're mocking him now. We're making fun of him. We're ridiculing him because...
Ridiculing.
Yeah. Because we're trying to drive the point home. But shame is it's a negative tool. If parents use shame as a tool to discipline their children, you're actually discouraging your children to open up. Right? So if the next time, you know, Buffer's really good at this. If he does something wrong, he will immediately go and say, you know what, I just, I ripped the carpet by accident.
Yeah.
I just immediately. Yeah. But if we make fun of him, I'm not going to try to use that word. If we make fun of him, he'll think twice about that.
But I think I think ridicule is a more appropriate word than saying make fun of. Because make fun of makes you think of mocking the person, but that's not what you're talking about. You're referring to essentially trying to cause embarrassment and shame. Yeah. About the point. Yeah. Yeah, so I would definitely say ridiculing is more an appropriate way of describing that.
Yeah, ridiculing.
I think ridiculing.
That's what I said, ridiculing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think Africans, I don't know about West Africans, definitely are very big on that.
Yeah, yeah, and no wonder the teenagers and the children have one person in the home, someone else outside, because you now want to have this image where your parents think the best of you all the time. Whereas, is it possible to cultivate an atmosphere in the home where the children are comfortable with their parents knowing the worst of them, and they're confident in that because they're not going to be treated. Shame is not going to be used against them.
Yeah.
So I'm a strong believer. Is once you've administered the discipline, even if you regret it afterwards, in terms of, my discipline was quite light. I should have gone heavier because we've been there before. They did something and you say, okay, this is the discipline. And then afterwards you're like, oh, okay, well, it's over now. And they're going back to their normal life. So you're still feeling, man, I should have done more. Once you've administered it, it's done.
Yeah,
it's finished. We can't bring it back up. We can't keep dangling it over their head because, and I wrote this statement, we don't want to show our children that we care more about being right than about being caring and loving.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not about the "I told you so." It's really about what can we learn from this? How can we grow? You're still someone I love. I still cherish. You're bigger than your mistake. I'm more concerned about you than I am about being right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you got any thoughts on that?
No, I think it's spot on. I do actually think this is something that I think mums probably would wrestle with more, because we can just be quite emotional about this. And I think there's also needs to be an element of not taking it personally.
Yeah.
When your children mess up, or they're disobedient or whatever. I think sometimes we can take it personally, and that's what fuels all of this behaviour in terms of all the things that you've described.
Yeah, and which is a good segue into the other point. In order to encourage our children to be more open and speak to us, we should try our best not to show our annoyance after the fact.
What do you mean?
If one of the children does something that's really annoying, then we will show that we're annoyed.
Right.
Right. They get over it. They want to move on. They want to sit on you, talk to you about something. Leave me alone. I'm annoyed. Just leave me alone. Just go away. And I do that. Especially especially if I'm really upset about something. And children have very little problems in life.
True.
Do I drink the vanilla milk or the chocolate milk? We're dealing with with work, bills, so things kind of sit heavier. But we have to realize they don't think like we do. They don't process things like we do. What they do process is our interaction with them. They reference off of that. So I've made a mistake. Fine. You've already disciplined me. I've learned from that. Fine. But now I want to hug. Now I want to sit with you. Now I want to ask a question about something else completely irrelevant. But then we push them away. We say, leave me alone. Give me some time. Or that kind of stuff. I think some can argue maybe you have to be allowed as a parent to be upset.
I was just about to say that, because we are also entitled to our emotions. And you can do things as a child that violate your parents and upset them. And what are we supposed to do? Not pretend that we're not upset? Or I think that's because then you're creating an artificial
intelligence.
No, an artificial environment. They also need to appreciate that you are human, and that their actions and their words does have impact on the people that love them.
But once you've disciplined them,
doesn't mean you're over it.
No, but then I think as the more mature people in the home, there has to be a level of maturity in the way that we respond to our children, because we're trying to teach them something by doing that. I'm annoyed, but I still love you. right? I'm annoyed, but and I would, just thinking based on what you just said now, it just made me think it's okay to actually maybe verbalize it, but without being dismissive, right? Tommy,
as in, I still love you. I'm just taking some time to process this.
Right, I'm still upset, but I still love you. Come give me a hug, but can you give mommy or give daddy a bit of time, please? That kind of thing. So they remain secure in that.
Sure.
Because again, the whole point of this is more than just how I feel about it. I'm thinking long term. Because if I continue to display this, because my child loves me, when they do something bad, they're going to say, well, I don't want that reaction. So I better not say anything.
Yeah, you're right.
Sense?
But
yeah.
I think also, is that what you do generally? Is that what you do in your marriage? Is that what you do with your friends? Is that how you respond to things? Because I think if that's an area of immaturity that you have, it will manifest in your relationship with your children as it would in other relationships. So if, say, for example, you have an issue with your spouse and, you've addressed it, you've had a conversation, apologies have been exchanged, but then you're still acting some type of way a long time afterwards, it's not going to be any different with your children. So I think if there's a character issue there's a character issue that has to be. Yeah,
I agree. I think the way you are with one is the way you are with all. There is, I would argue, just the people tend to be more raw with the people closest to them, and a bit more forgiving and a bit more jovial, a bit more what's the word for when you control your emotions?
Yeah.
Around strangers or acquaintances.
More restrained.
Yeah, more restrained. That's the word. And so, so here's the thing: we have it in us to be able to do that in those environments. Yes, so it means that we have the ability. It's just that it's a lot easier not to do that with people that you are the most closest to. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's a character issue and a character trait. And some people might say, what, it's just the way I am. It is what it is. You annoyed me, But I think it's good to begin to think about these things long term. Okay, yeah, fine. I'm going to vent my emotions, but what does that mean from the relationship of my child when they're slightly older? Will they hide things, or will they come to me? Because I would sooner go to someone if I've dropped the ball, done something dumb, and I explain this is what I've done, and they deal with it in such a way where I still feel very much loved. I can tell you're annoyed, but you're not reacting. The next time something happens, I'm going back to you. And I think the opposite is true. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, and I think that kind of it's in the same vein of, again, another point here is just don't hold grudges. I think that's saying the same thing in a different way. A grudge, can be held for the rest of the day. Something happens in the morning and you're angry for the whole day. And every time the child is trying to talk to you about something, you bring it up. It's a grudge.
True.
We would have been on time if you didn't do this. But Mum, that was 6 hours ago. Don't talk back to me. Yeah, we were going to the park, but we're not going anymore. Why, Dad? Because yesterday you wrote the letter A on the wall, but you already disciplined me. Yeah, well, I'm still upset. I'm holding a grudge, and so we don't. You know what I mean? Like it's.
I think we also have to be very careful about modeling certain behaviors as well, because, you doing that. What are you teaching your children? In terms of how they respond in situations. Like there were a few times when I was like really annoyed, so I would tell off the children or one of the children about something, and then I'd leave the room and I'd slam the door. And then after a few times of like realizing the children were doing that to each other, I was like, probably shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we've just got two more then. The second to last one is we ought not to expect perfection from our children in every area of life. Our children, their heroes are their parents. And so they would do anything to please their heroes. This is why rejection is such an issue, because you grow up wanting to be told by your mum and your dad, well done, you've done so well, I'm proud of you, I love you. These are the words that propel you in life. Okay, so your mum is your hero, your dad is your hero. You look up to them, you want to be like them, you want to marry people like them, you model after them, you do what they do because that's your model. And so one of the things you hate, it should be your model, yeah. One of the things you hate to do to your heroes is disappoint them and let them down. And so if we expect as parents perfection from our children, every single thing that I put you in, I'm expecting 110%. If you're going to do maths, I need 100 A's, A stars, whatever. Every field, I want 100%. Right? We don't say it like that, but through the way we behave and the way we respond to things, that's what we are communicating to them. They are going to want to be and think that perfection is normal. They don't have the capacity to realize that no one is perfect. No one can hit A's and A pluses in everything. There's some exceptional people out there, but the reality is, and so I think one of the ways to encourage our children to open up to us is push them for perfection. But when they fail, don't make them feel like they failed you or that they aren't complete as human beings, because this can be, this is where real frustration comes out from, because if I'm not number one, if I'm not the best, if I don't win, then mum's going to be disappointed, dad's going to be disappointed, and so I want to please my heroes. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's definitely the case. I agree. Growing up, I definitely felt that with my dad. In terms of, like at school, for example, if I got an A, it was like, why was it not an A star? If I got an A star, how many other people got A stars? So nothing ever felt good enough, and I think it created a resentment. So, and then in the end, I think that resentment caused me to kind of pull back, like when I hit my teens. I think it's true.
That's very interesting. When you say pull back, what do you mean?
Just as in become very I don't want to please you anymore, and I don't care if you're unhappy about that. That it kind of created that attitude.
And if our children make mistakes in life and they want to please their heroes, it makes sense for them to hide their errors, to hide their sin, to hide the bad choices they make, because they don't want to disappoint us, because they grew up with that kind of mindset that mum and dad are only happy when I'm doing well. If I'm not doing well, I want to hide that, I want to sweep that under the rug. So we somehow have to be able to communicate as parents to our children that win or lose, you're loved. Go for the win, right? Do your best. If you get a B and you only did 75% of what you can do, I'll be upset. But if you get a C and you put in 110% of everything you could in there, then I'm very proud of you. Because it's not the results, it's your work ethic. And win or lose, you're very much loved, you're very much valuable, and you can bring all of the good and the bad, and we'll still love you and we'll still accept you. So I think that's definitely something to put in there. And then lastly, I think in all our interaction with our children, we always have to point towards hope and speak life. Every conversation can't be what they're doing wrong. Oh, you've messed this up again. Oh, I bet you won't do this, and blah, blah, blah. So, and again, we can get into a rut as parents of doing that, of speaking sarcastically, speaking in such a way where the majority of the conversation is what they need to do or what they haven't done. I think a lot of conversation with our children have to be positive and affirmation. Well done. You're doing well. I'm very proud. Keep going. More so than anything else. So flavoring and salting all of our conversation with hope and love for the future. Loads of hugs, loads of kisses, loads of cuddling, lots of playing around, I think if you sow hope, the children will know whenever I come to you with an issue, at the end of that conversation, I'm going to walk away from that feeling better about myself, or in other words, feeling hopeful about the future, what God can do in my life and how this thing can turn around, and because that's the kind of disposition that my parents have. And I think if we put all of those elements together and work towards putting that in our children, we'll find that the dinner table conversations will be very open and honest.
I'd actually also add, just because it's something that I read, I think that it's important not to overreact about the small things. Because if you overreact about the small things, then when it comes to the big things, your children would have kind of internalized that, okay, if that's how they reacted when, I don't know, I lost the key, then how they're going to react when it's, I don't know, something significant, like, I can't think of an example, but
No, it's a very good point. So if we give Benjamin the house keys so that he doesn't have to knock when he comes inside, and he loses the key in the garden, if the response to that is screaming and shouting and how could you, we trusted you over a key, how is he going to tell us about something even, if exactly what you said, if that's how you react to that, subconsciously they're thinking, I don't want anything. So we have to have the right temperament when it comes to how we handle situations. So if you're a hothead parent, sometimes you just don't need to say anything. Just okay, all right. When your mum comes home, when your dad comes home, or I'll speak to you later about this, and then just take time to really think it through. Is it that deep? Is it really that deep? Because ultimately we want our children to open up and I want they're my children now, but when they're older, they'll always be my children. But I want an element of friendship, where we are vulnerable with each other, and that doesn't come.
Like when they're adults.
That doesn't come by accident. That's a deliberate. You get there by being deliberate and intentional.
I remember one. I think it was a marriage seminar. If as an adult you have children. No, if when your children are adults, they come to you for advice, for tips. They want to spend time with you. They seek your opinion about things. That's a testament to your parenting of when they were younger. But if your children are not really interested, then that says it all. So I think, just going on the back of what you said, in terms of we want that relationship when they're adults. Because when they're adults, really the ball's going to be in their court. You can't make them spend time with you. You can't make them come round. They have to want to. And it's all of these kind of building blocks.
Thank you for your thoughts. I think we pretty much covered everything. I enjoyed this one. I wanted to get it off my chest, and I hope that it helps a lot of people who hear it, and we can begin to implement some things in our own home as well. And the next one, we'll talk about the Constitution, and hopefully by then we can actually have something written down and we can start printing them. But you guys will explain that at the next podcast, which are my podcasts. This is my baby.
This is your baby.
Yeah, this is my baby. Okay. Well, that being said, please remember to keep my wife's name out